I am 58 years old and have been married to Diana, 56F, for 25 years. We have what I have always considered a very solid marriage, and we communicate eloquently and respect each other. However, because my wife uses Reddit, she disregarded my rules and allowed her unemployed, freeloading sister to take my Stratocaster, a family heirloom. We threatened to take legal action, and now our marriage is on the line because of this. Diana and I met in our early 30s, and I was already a few years into my career as an accountant, a job I enjoy for its structure and predictability. We built a comfortable life together, but her younger sister, Wendy, 52, has always been a constant source of friction, and a recent incident has brought things to a head. I need to know if I'm being unreasonable in my reaction. Diana, who taught elementary school and still does, has the patience of a saint, which is probably why she tolerates me, and to be honest, why she tolerates Wendy. Our backgrounds were quite similar. We both grew up in middle-class families, and my parents were extremely sensible, down-to-earth individuals who were extremely responsible with their money. They taught me the value of saving, avoiding needless debt, and living within my means. I recall my dad telling me, "Money doesn't grow on trees," whenever I asked for something extravagant as a child. It wasn't a harsh reprimand, but it served as a constant reminder of the importance of fiscal responsibility and hard work. They saved and scrimped for years to purchase a small, modest cottage by the lake. It wasn't much, but it meant the world to them. Diana's family, however, was a different story. Her parents, both of whom are now deceased, were always chasing the next big thing, the next get-rich-quick scheme. They would start businesses they had no idea how to run, invest in erratic stocks, and generally treat money like water flowing through their fingers. They were constantly in debt, borrowing from one place to pay another, causing a great deal of instability and stress in their home. Diana's younger sister, regrettably, appears to have inherited all of their worst financial habits and none of their few redeeming traits. She has never been able to hold down a steady job for more than a few months at a time and is constantly moving from one temporary position to another. She has potential and an entrepreneurial spirit, but she never really follows through on anything. She has elaborate fantasies about becoming a successful businesswoman, fashion designer, famous chef, or anything else she can think of, but she lacks the work ethic, discipline, and, to be honest, common sense to make any of those dreams come true. Fortunately, Diana is the opposite of her sister. Early in our marriage, we decided to have a joint account for shared expenses and separate accounts for our spending. This system has worked well for us for 25 years because it gives us both a certain amount of independence while still ensuring that our shared financial goals are met. She is grounded, responsible, and incredibly thoughtful. Our obligations are fulfilled. We have established a secure yet comfortable life for ourselves. We have saved hard for retirement, and we are on track to be able to live comfortably without financial concern. This security is something I greatly value, most likely due to my parents' influence, but Wendy is a continual source of conflict. Over the years, Diana has lent her sister money numerous times. It's always the same story. Wendy is in a temporary situation and needs some assistance to get back on her feet. She promises to repay the loan as soon as possible, but that time never seems to come. I'd estimate that over the past 20 years, Diana has lent Wendy thousands of dollars, and I'd be shocked if she's seen more than a few hundred repaid. I have never prohibited Diana from helping her sister because I understand how important family is to her, but I have gently, and occasionally not so gently, urged her to set some boundaries. I have repeatedly stated that allowing Wendy's reckless behavior won't help her in the long run. Rather, it will only prolong a cycle of dependency. The first truly noteworthy incident that directly affected us occurred about 10 years ago, when Wendy decided to start a luxury pet grooming business in one of her brief bursts of entrepreneurial zeal. Wendy has no experience running a business of any kind, no training in animal care, and no pet ownership history, but she was certain that this was her ticket to success. To get started, she needed a sizable loan, so she asked Diana to co-sign. Diana was giving it some serious thought because she wanted to encourage her sister to believe in herself and give her a chance, but I firmly stated to her that if we co-signed the loan, we would be held legally liable for the full amount owed if Wendy defaulted, which, given her past, seemed all but certain. I provided a clear picture of the possible outcome. During a difficult conversation, Diana was upset with me and accused me of not understanding the value of family loyalty and being unsupportive. She claimed that Wendy simply needed a break and a chance to prove herself, to which I replied that we had already given her numerous opportunities and that this was too risky. After days of back and forth, Diana finally agreed, seeing the logic in my argument even though she didn't like it. Wendy was furious when I told her she couldn't co-sign the loan. She accused me of being manipulative and controlling and of purposefully undermining her dream. She also put Diana through a terrible guilt trip, saying that I didn't believe in her and that Diana was picking me over her sister. The pet grooming business, of course, was a complete failure and closed down within 6 months, leaving Wendy even more in debt. Naturally, she never expressed regret to Diana or me. Instead, she just went on to the next plan, the next big idea. Fast Fast forward to around 6 months ago when my uncle, my father's brother, passed away. He was a musician, a lifelong bachelor, and a truly good man. He left me his most valuable belongings, a collection of vintage guitars, some of which were collector's items that date back to the 1960s. These guitars were much more than just musical instruments to me. I remember going to see him as a kid and being enthralled by the sounds he could produce with those guitars. He would let me strum them carefully and show me how to hold them, although I had no musical talent at all. I had a gorgeous old Gibson acoustic, a vintage Fender Telecaster, and the crown jewel, a 1967 Fender Stratocaster in perfect condition. I knew I had to protect the guitars after inheriting the collection, so I turned our spare room into a small home office/music room. I upgraded the security system, adding a reinforced door with several locks and a humidity control system to keep the guitars in top condition. I hardly ever let anyone in that room, not even Diana. Not because I didn't trust her, but because those guitars were extremely valuable to me, and I wanted to reduce the possibility of damage, or heaven forbid. However, about 6 months ago, Wendy went through another difficult time. She lost her most recent job due to a personality conflict with her manager, which I knew would indicate that Wendy had been untrustworthy or insubordinate. She was also facing eviction from her apartment, so she naturally turned to Diana for assistance. Being a kind person, Diana offered to let Wendy stay with us for a few weeks while she recovered. I was apprehensive about this idea, but I also understood how much it meant to Diana to support her sister, so I reluctantly accepted. However, I set obvious guidelines, so I sat down with Diana and Wendy and told Wendy that she was welcome to stay in our guest room. I made it obvious that the room was off limit, that it contained valuable and irreplaceable items, and that I would not tolerate any violation of that boundary. Wendy, of course, agreed to everything, looked me in the eye, and said that she would respect our privacy, that there would be no borrowing of money at all, and most importantly, that she would never be allowed to enter my office/music room. For the first few weeks, everything was surprisingly calm. Wendy kept to herself and mostly stayed in the guest room. She made a few unproductive attempts to find a job, but nothing came of it. I tried to avoid her as much as possible, not because I was rude, but because I didn't trust her. Then, one afternoon, I came home from work early, and ever since, I've been feeling uneasy. I decided to go upstairs and lie down for a while because I had a bad headache and felt unwell. As I passed my office, I heard a faint noise that sounded like strumming, and my heart fell. I knew right away that something was wrong, so I slowly opened the door and saw Wendy standing in the center of my office, holding the Stratocaster guitar, and she was awkwardly trying to play it. I was shocked and felt angry. I was able to keep my voice fairly calm when I asked Wendy, "What do you think you're doing?" She jumped, startled, and almost dropped the guitar, but she stammered, "Oh, I was just looking. It's so beautiful. I was just admiring it." I repeated, "You were playing it, and you're in my office, which I specifically told you was off limit." She attempted to backtrack to minimize the situation, but I said in a firm voice, "Put it down now and leave my office." She reluctantly put the guitar back in its stand, avoiding eye contact and looking sheepish. I watched her go, and then I locked the door behind her. I quickly checked all the guitars to make sure there were no scratches or damage, and fortunately, everything appeared to be in order. I told Diana what had happened as soon as she got home from work, and she apologized and said she would talk to Wendy to make sure it didn't happen again. Although the guitar was worth several $100s, the main reason was that Diana had betrayed my trust and needed to bear some of the consequences. As for the Stratocaster, I informed Diana that I held Wendy primarily responsible. However, I expected Diana to do everything in her power to retrieve it or make sure Wendy paid me for its loss because she had unintentionally enabled the theft. I told her that if Wendy refused to cooperate, I would consider taking legal action, which included filing a police report and suing her in small claims court. Diana was devastated, but she claimed she didn't have that kind of money. We've been arguing about this nonstop for the past few weeks. The situation with Wendy is still unresolved. The guitars are still gone, and our marriage is under a lot of strain. She accused me of being unfair for putting material possessions before family, saying that it would deplete her savings and put a significant strain on our finances. I understand that my wife was trying to help her sister, who was in a tough situation, but I feel like she ignored my feelings. So Reddit, am I being unreasonable for not just accepting the loss of these sentimental and valuable guitars? I'm truly conflicted because I love my wife, but I also feel like I need to defend myself and safeguard my asset. I want to thank everyone who replied to my first post. It's been tremendously beneficial to hear from so many people who have gone through similar experiences and to know that I'm not alone in feeling this way. Many of you pointed out quite rightly that while Wendy is unquestionably the main culprit in this situation, Diana bears a significant degree of responsibility as well. The outpouring of support and advice has been overwhelming, and to be honest, quite validating. You're right, I hadn't fully considered Diana's role in allowing Wendy to do what she did because I was so angry and frustrated about the stolen guitars and Wendy's complete disregard for my property. Reading your comments, many of which stressed the value of trust and boundaries in a marriage, helped me see things more clearly and made me realize realized that I was directing the majority of my anger at Wendy, but a good deal of it needed to be addressed with Diana. Last night, I had a lengthy and extremely challenging conversation with Diana. Fortunately, it wasn't a shouting match. I apologized to her for concentrating only on Wendy's behavior and for not fully acknowledging her role in this situation. I told her that I understood she was attempting to assist her sister and that she was driven by a desire to be loving and supportive, but I also calmly and clearly explained how deeply her actions had hurt me. I discussed the sentimental value of the guitars, especially the Stratocaster, and I tried to explain to her that it wasn't just about the money, even though that was important, but also about the memories and the connection to my uncle. I told her that I felt like she had put Wendy's needs first and once again overlooked the trust that is essential to our marriage. Diana listened this time and apologized once more. She acknowledged that she had been allowing Wendy to take advantage of our generosity for years out of guilt, family loyalty, and possibly naive hope that Wendy would change. She also admitted that she had always felt responsible for her family and that allowing Wendy access after I had explicitly set boundaries was a mistake. The Stratocaster alone is worth a significant amount, but Diana doesn't have enough money in her savings to cover the full replacement value of both guitars. We discussed solutions and concluded that, at least for now, Diana will use what she does have in her savings to buy a good guitar. 2. We're giving Wendy one last chance to do the right thing. She has 1 week to either return the guitar in its original condition or give us the full amount of money she received for selling it, along with verifiable proof of the sale price. The replacement acoustic guitar won't be the same model, of course, but she will find a comparable one, something of similar quality and value. The idea of suing my sister-in-law is extremely unpleasant, but we felt we had to give her one last chance. If Wendy doesn't comply within the week, we will take legal action. Many of you suggested small claims court, which seems like the most sensible course of action. We're going to speak with a lawyer to discuss our options and make sure we're following the right procedure. I have to protect my future because this entire experience has revealed some long-standing problems with our communication and how we resolve family disputes. We have both decided that we need professional assistance to resolve these problems, and we have already set up our first meeting with a marriage counselor. I'm hoping that this will help us strengthen our relationship and create better coping strategies. This is a start update. It's been a month since my last update, and while I wish I could say that everything has magically resolved itself, it hasn't. However, there has been some progress and, regrettably, some more disappointment. We need to have very strict boundaries in place. This isn't a magical solution. It doesn't bring back my Stratocaster or erase the hurt and anger I feel. Diana, to her credit, eventually got Wendy on the phone after several days of trying. According to Diana, the conversation was a masterclass in avoidance and excuses, and Wendy spun a tale about the difficulties that followed the deadline we gave her to return the Stratocaster or provide the money. The outcome was predictable. She had nothing whatsoever. No guitar, no money, and no communication. We followed through on our plan after speaking with a lawyer who confirmed that we had a strong case for small claims court and who described the procedure. The story went that the guitar was in storage at a friend's house and she couldn't get to it right now due to some excuse. She made a vague promise to work something out, but it was obvious she didn't intend to take responsibility for her actions. The lawyer cautioned us that even if the court decided in our favor, getting the money from Wendy might be a prolonged and challenging process. We filed the paperwork, and when Wendy received the lawsuit, the real drama started. Wendy naturally reacted emotionally, calling Diana and crying, accusing us of being uncaring. She said she had no idea the guitar was so valuable and that we were being completely unreasonable, that we're not wealthy, but we're acting like we are. Nevertheless, Diana stood her ground, which was a big step for her. Normally, she would have given in to pressure, apologized, and tried to make things right. But this time, she told Wendy that this was a direct result of her actions, that she had taken something that didn't belong to her, and that she needed to accept responsibility. The court date was set for last week, and I was extremely anxious since I had never been involved in a legal proceeding before. I spent hours preparing my testimony, gathering documentation, and trying to predict any questions Wendy's lawyer, if she had one at all, might ask. On the morning of the court date, we arrived at the courtroom. Wendy never showed up, so we found our seats and waited. The judge then started the hearing, went over our paperwork, heard my brief testimony, and seeing no reason to contest our claim, decided in our favor by default. We were given the entire amount we had asked for, which included the estimated market value of the Stratocaster plus the price of the replacement acoustic guitar that Diana had already bought. We had the judgment, but we knew that getting Wendy to pay would be a difficult task, if not an impossible one. The lawyer had described the different ways of enforcement, including garnishing Wendy's wages, which is extremely unlikely given her work history, putting a lien on her property, which is even less likely because she doesn't own anything valuable, and seizing assets, which she doesn't appear to have. However, as I mentioned earlier, it's more about setting a boundary and showing Diana that allowing her sister's behavior is unacceptable. On a more positive note, the couple's counseling has been extremely extremely beneficial. It's been difficult and painful at times, but it's also been worth it. Holding my breath, unrealistic, and I doubt we'll ever see the full amount or perhaps any of it anytime soon. Diana is working on identifying and breaking her codependent patterns with Wendy. She understands that frequently supporting her sister entails allowing her destructive behavior. I'm working on being more understanding and patient to recognize the pressure Diana has been under. It's enlightening. We're learning to communicate our needs and concerns more effectively without using blame or accusation. We've also decided that Wendy is no longer welcome in our home. Diana found this difficult, but she finally agreed that it was necessary because she needed to feel safe and secure in her home, and she couldn't do that with Wendy involved. I think it's unfortunate to have reached this point with a family member, but it's an essential boundary.